Radio Now 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.
Hello, I'm Emily Metheny, your host. This week, I talked about problem gambling with Chris Gray, Executive Director for the Indiana Council on Problem Gaming. We talked about what the addiction is, why gaming loot boxes are considered gambling, and where people can find resources to help themselves and the people they care about. Chris starts our conversation by talking about what gambling is defined as.
Gambling is basically spending money to possibly receive something back. You're not guaranteed that you're going to get anything back, but there's that level there that you can receive money in return or some kind of prize in return.
And how does that start to become problem gambling?
Okay, it becomes more of a problem with gambling when a person is, it becomes increasingly preoccupied with gambling and a feeling that they need to bet more and more money more frequently. And they have mood swings, and they try to stop, and they can't. And so that it just they get a sense of it's like a person who is on drugs or alcohol. They get more so drugs. They get that rush when they gamble.
And people are going to be continuing to chase that feeling, and that's what's going to lead you more down that road.
Right. Right.
And so where does the Indiana Council on Problem Gambling come into this?
Okay, we were formed about the time that the casinos were legalized in Indiana, so around 1997. And the council is here basically to educate, advocate, and be a resource for people who feel they have a problem with gambling.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just the casinos. It's if someone was betting online, would that also be someone who could seek help from you guys?
Yes. When you talk about gambling, that encompasses quite a bit. Besides the casinos, there's horse racing, there's charity gaming. Some people get in trouble a lot of times with the charity gaming like bingo. Mm-hmm. And it also includes now sports betting, the lottery, and and that's just the legal part of it. There's also all the illegal parts, dog fighting. A couple of years ago, the Indiana Gaming Commission found a chicken ring that where they were, chicken fights. So, it's not only the legal stuff, but also includes illegal stuff.
So if someone's involved in the illegal gambling, are they still able to seek help from resources that you have on your website?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely, yes. It's for anyone that has a problem with gambling of any type. And now the other thing that we're looking at, when I say we, I belong to the National Council on Problem Gambling. I'm one of the affiliates, and there are just about, not every state, but close to just about every state is an affiliate. And one thing that we're looking into now is gaming, not gambling, but gaming, because gaming has loot boxes and skins where you pay money to get these boxes or skins, and when you open them, you get some kind of prize, but most of the time it's something that's not, it's not the big prize that you want. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people are spending money on these loot boxes and skins, and so you can get in trouble with that as well.
No, that's really important because I know a lot of people my age are really into gaming, and loot boxes are something we've talked about. If like, because we are trying to get these limited edition skins or the special weapon or things like that. So that is technically gambling.
Yes, you're right. It is gambling because they're spending money, and they're not guaranteed what prize they're going to get. It's just a chance.
Mm-hmm. And this isn't just on like game systems like PlayStations, Xboxes. This is also on your phones as well, right?
Yes.
It's becoming more and more accessible where we can be in these gambling type of situations. What should we be looking for to make sure we're not stepping into that problem gambling zone?
Well, a lot of times, it's very rare for a person to actually see it in themselves. But if you're some of the warning signs or signs to look for is where all you think about is gambling. All you think about is where you're going to get your money to gamble, and these are people and we don't really have any statistics here in Indiana, but according to the National Council on Problem Gambling, 1% of the population is what we call pathological or compulsive gambling, and these are people that are really preoccupied with gambling, whereas they are always thinking about gambling. When they can play next. When they can get to that high and get to playing and spending. Their whole focus is getting money to gamble. So if you have somebody that talks a lot about gambling or talks a lot about, the things they're buying, like this, when I talk about spending money, is even with the loot boxes and the skins, if you have somebody that constantly talks about that or talks about going to the casino or the horse races, and their conversation is mostly about these gambling, and then they feel the need to bet more money and more frequently to get that high because they're always trying to get that good feeling. Mm-hmm. And they will be restless and moody, and they will try to stop, but they find that they can't. And, you'll see people that, they lose time at work or they don't attend family events. So these are some of the warning signs to look for.
Mm-hmm. And if we have someone in our life who is exhibiting some of these signs, how can we start that conversation if they haven't caught it themselves?
Well, that's a delicate. It's just like having the conversation with an alcoholic or a drug addict. They may listen to you and they may not. The big thing is what I usually tell people that call me is I ask if the gambler has admitted to having a gambling addiction. That's the first thing, is getting them to admit it, because unless they admit it, then they are not ready for treatment, not truly ready. And so that's the first thing you want to see, is if they'll admit that, yes, they do have a gambling problem. And if they do, then encourage them to get into recovery and seek help. We have information on our webpage, which is indianaproblemgambling.org. And on there we have a link to the Gambler Anonymous meetings. We also have a link for treatment providers where you can click on that link and see what treatment providers are in your area. One nice thing that's become one good thing from the pandemic is now they do have GA meetings that you can attend virtually, as well as now in person, so you can do both. And also the state lifted their restrictions on talking to a therapist in person. So you don't necessarily have to go now to the therapist's office to talk face-to-face with a therapist. you can do it online or over the phone. So that was one thing that came out of COVID, was being able to do this. So because the number of therapists, especially in the rural areas, there's not a lot of them out there. And some people were driving several hours to go see a therapist or attend a GA meeting.
And now it's much more accessible to so many more people.
Right. And getting back to the family thing, I also encourage the family to go to our website, because we have a link to Gamanon, which is for family members of people with problem gambling. I also encourage them to go see a therapist as well, simply because when a person goes into recovery, the family, for the most part, family or friends, are the support group for that person. And so it's good for them to get into therapy and also go to Gamanon, just so that they have they get a better sense of how to deal with the problem gambler. And I also, if the problem gambler doesn't admit to having a problem, then these resources help the family with dealing with the problem gambler and not being an enabler.
That's very important too.
Yes.
And Chris, is there any helplines or texting lines that people can reach out to as well?
Yes. There are a couple of helplines. The Indiana helpline, which is 1-800-9-WITH-IT, WITHIT, or 800-994-8448. That's the Indiana helpline. Then there's also a national gambling helpline, which is 800-522-4700. That's the national gambling helpline, 800-522-4700. And now we have a text that you can text INGAMB, and that's all capital letters, INGAMB, to 53342. Once again, you can text INGAMB, INGAMB, to 53342.
And people can also go to your website, which is, can you give that website one more time, please?
Yes, it's IndianaProblemGambling.org.
Perfect. And kind of circling back around to talking with family members, especially with the loot boxes, which I feel are very accessible to our younger listeners and younger members of our family. How can the adults in their life talk to them and kind of help them better understand that loot boxes are gambling?
First of all, I think one thing that parents need to realize is that they need to make sure that their kids are not spending all their time on games. So you almost have to, when they're young, set limits to how much time they spend on their games. But it's just a matter of, sitting down with them and, first of all, where are they getting the money to buy the loot boxes? I mean, are they using money from the parents? Are they getting the money from the parents? If it's a job that, if it's a teenager and they have a job, did you sit down and talk with your teenager about how much money they're going to set aside into savings? Point out that, they're spending their money on these loot boxes and they're not guaranteed a prize. It's very hard to sometimes talk to teenagers about it, but you really have to sit down and talk to them about it. And not only that, but the one big thing that, with the sports betting, that's another thing. And I don't know that a lot of parents realize, sometimes what goes on at the schools. I used to work for I worked for the Gaming Commission for 20 years. And I remember one of the other auditors that I worked with a while ago, he was from a southern state, and he talked about how they would play craps in the bathroom. Yeah, at the school. So, their gambling goes on at the high school level. And so the other thing, I mean, look at March Madness and how our acceptance of getting involved in all these pools and you even in football, same thing. You get involved in all of these, and it's, for most people it's fun. It's it's what a way they socialize, which is fine. But for some people, it can become a problem. One other thing I don't know that a lot of people think about, I remember, now that I look back, when I was young, sitting on a relative's lap while my family sat around and played. I couldn't even tell you the card game they were playing, but they played a penny a pot. Now, a penny's not that much, but still, it was gambling, So people don't realize that, the friendly poker game that the family plays, when they all get together, is friendly and fun. But for some people, it can lead to problem gambling.
And kind of going off from that, what other alternatives could people do to kind of fill that social spot instead of doing like company brackets and things like this, or the friendly poker game? What other opportunities are there that we could use to socialize, just to make sure we're not kind of feeding into what could potentially become a problem with gambling?
Well, one of the things, I mean, I don't want to tell you to stop doing the brackets, but don't have it be friendly. Do a bracket without having money involved. Do a, you can also do other fun competitive stuff, but don't just have the money be involved. Don't have and they even talk about, if you want to get to the bare minimum, even if you play for like peanuts or pretzels or something, it's still a wager of some sort. So, so that's one thing is, just don't have the monetary or the wagering aspect of it. You can still have fun playing the game and seeing who wins, but just have it so that, there's no wagering of anything involved.
And Chris, as we start to wrap up, are there any common myths that people tell themselves as they are, as they're problem gambling that you could talk about?
One biggie is, if you sit at a slot machine and play X amount of time or X amount of money, that does not mean that you will win the big prize. That's just not the way a slot machine works. Don't chase the money. You will not, if you think that if I sit here and bet more, I will recoup my money. That's not true. So, set an amount. One thing that's becoming big in a lot of places is responsible gambling. A lot of places now talk about how to be responsible when you're gambling, which I think is great. What the Hoosier Lottery last year was not last year, the year before. Last year was an interesting year, but in 2019, their whole campaign was to know what you're betting. So if you read a back of a ticket that says 1 in 4 tickets is a winner, it does not mean if you buy 4 tickets, one of those will be a winner.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what that means. So, I applaud that as well. The whole concept of responsible gambling. So know your limits, know how much you can spend, take just a certain amount of money to spend when you go to the casino, have that be your entertainment money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And know the game that you're playing, understand what it is you're actually betting on and the odds of winning, truly winning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also a good campaign because there are people out there, a lot of times that'll say, well, I'm going to just take $50. And then when they get there and they lose their $50, then they'll stay and play a little bit more. Well, this kind of says, hey, you need to stop and think about what you're doing. So I also applaud the responsible gambling campaigns that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Chris, can I have you give the helplines one more time as we start to wrap up?
Sure. The Indiana Gambling Helpline is 800-994-8448. Once again, that's 800-994-8448. The National Gambling Helpline is 800-522-4700. Once again, that's 800-522-4700. And there's also a text. You can text INGAMB, INGAMB, to 53342. Once again, text INGAMB, INGAMB, to 53342.
Perfect. And is there anything else you want to touch on, to leave on at all?
Yes. If you feel you have a problem with gambling, please get into recovery, get help. It's out there, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
To see the resources that Chris gave again, or to learn more about problem gambling, you can visit our website at RadioNowIndy.com. All you have to do is search Indy's Connection in the search bar. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or topics you'd like to hear more about, email me at emetheny, that's EMETHENY, at radio-one.com. Or you can message me on Twitter at EmilyDoesVideo. Until then, have a great week.
Radio Now 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.